Nano Machine by Hanjo Wheelia. Chapter 457. You Aren't Him. Part 1. The Blade Lord's eyes fluttered. No matter how much time passed, he would never forget him. The monster who brought in the first defeat of the Blade Lord, who was proud of his existence. As a result, their plan was delayed. God of the East. 20 years had passed, but he was still the same. Except for one thing. Did he hurt his arm? His right arm had been injured, so he twisted it back into place, yet it still looked hurt. Even so, seeing him take down the huge black tiger with just his left hand was still unimaginable. Not just the demon god, but even the god of the East? Huang Heol, who was watching this from the other side, couldn't hide his shock. 20 years ago, when they were aiming for Changbai Mountain, this man appeared. At that time, the god of the East showed tremendous power enough to defeat the clan's warriors with simple attacks. It was clear then. Huh? But the demon god arrived first to defeat the monster? Something seemed strange. They had been the ones who waited for Chen Yuan to lead his clan to the entrance of the mountain, and then the Blade God's 6 martial clan made their way up. It was so both the demon god and the god of the East would fight and become exhausted. This meant that the god of the East had collided with Chen Yuan. Ah. They looked at the god of the East's right arm. They were so concerned with the black tiger that they didn't look at it, but it looked like Arkwui was injured. Does that mean he was defeated by the demon god? Otherwise, he shouldn't have been hurt like that. Who else could even injure that monster? But there were doubts. The demon god never shows mercy to his enemies. But not long after they collided, they arrived, stopping their battle in the middle. Huang Heol thought that the battle between the two was incomplete. The cause was the tiger. They must have felt that vicious energy forming on the mountain, and there was no way that Chen Yuan would ignore it and continue the battle. As soon as the demon god appeared, he aimed for the core. Then, this is good. We can let those two people fight. There was no need for the Blade Lord to work. He should let the other two fight it out, and then once the winner is decided, he could overpower them. Thinking so, Huang Heol shouted towards the god of the East, who was on the black tiger. God of the East. The core of the white tiger lies in his hands. Core? At those words, the god of the East turned his gaze towards Chen Yuan, who was holding the core. His eyes darkened. He did make the request with a bitter heart, but he didn't know that Chen Yuan had already taken the core. Then why didn't he fall? Arkwui wondered. The heart was pierced, and the core was lost. Any spirit beast would have succumbed to this, but this one was still raring to go. What spirit beast can be this strong? He was puzzled when Huang Heol shouted again. That man there is aiming for the core of the white tiger. God of the East. It was his intention to make him and Chen Yuan battle it out. Thinking that he was provoking them, he continued to shout, but no fight broke out. Maybe it's because he lost the battle. It was then. Arkwui extended his fist in the direction of Huang Heol. And space distorted. Pang! At the same time, great wind pressure rose in front of Huang Heol. It was aimed at him and not the demon god. Ugh, why? Fat. Flustered former Lord Wu, the man with the golden eye patch, and the other former lord, who had one arm injured by the black tiger, blocked it. Stand back. Huang Heol. Former Lord Wu. Block it. Good. Visor. To protect him, the two men drew out their own swords, creating a huge wave of energy, and swung their swords towards the wind which was coming for them. All they wanted to do was prevent the wind from hitting them forcefully. But... Kwang! Ah! What power! Kook! They taught the 6 martial masters, and they were also Blade Lord candidates. Even if their opponent was a divine master, they thought that if they worked together, they would be able to block the attack, but it was all a mistake. Clench. The energy wave, which was made from two different swords, couldn't overcome the wind pressure, and on the contrary, they were thrown backwards. Cha-cha-cha. Both the former lords got pushed away almost instantly. If it wasn't for Huang Heol, the man in bandages behind them, they would have just avoided the attack. The cost they were paying was very high. Thud. Quack. The former lord, with an injured arm, knelt on the ground, coughing up blood. Even the man in the golden eye patch wasn't in good condition. His stomach felt twisted by the attack, which seemed to penetrate his flesh. FO former lords. Huang Heol, who was saved thanks to the former lords blocking the wind, was worried as he looked at them. SRRR. Energy rose from their bodies. The two of them were skilled. They weren't at the stage of the Blade Lord, but they were on the same level as the 5 strongest warriors, yet with just one hit, they suffered internal injuries. Isn't he a complete monster? Still, they thought that the situation would be different from what happened 20 years ago. Not just the Blade Lord, but even the other clan members, became a whole lot stronger. However, they still couldn't withstand a single attack from that person. You're doing useless things. The Blade Lord's eyebrows rose when he saw the two people injured by Arc Wui. While trying to help Huang Heol caused a lot of trouble. I can't take my eyes off this guy yet. His desire to repay Arc Wui for the past was burning bright, but he couldn't overlook the enemy in front of him. Besides, the core was in Chen Yuan's hand, and he had to take it. There was only one way for that to happen. First, he defeats the demon god and then fights the god of the east. Huang Heol. The man was startled at the sudden message he was sent and looked at the Blade Lord. Be Blade Lord? The Blade Lord looked and smiled at him, then gave him an order. While I'm dealing with the demon god, do everything you can to prevent the god of the east from interfering. Understood. He responded right away. The fact that he had given the order meant that he was confident that he could take Chen Yuan down. In that case, he had to make sure that the order was fulfilled. Huang Heol exclaimed. Listen to me, the warriors of Blade God's 6 martial clan. Our opponent is the god of the east. Even if you have to sacrifice yourselves, stop. Before he could even finish the order. Crack. The ground trembled, and something huge seemed to move. The black tiger was big enough to make the land vibrate just by moving. Ah, is it still not dead? They all thought that the tiger died when it was hit by the god of the east. But he was up again. Kwaaya. The huge black tiger, with its 4 limbs spreading wide, roared and roared. Anger clearly visible in its red eyes. Gulp. Huang Heol, who was about to give the order, closed his mouth. Even the great bird didn't act like this. He was puzzled by the god of the east, who was on the neck of the large black tiger. The fist which struck the tiger was his best. You lost your core. Even then, you're trying to survive with everything you've got? He didn't know what was holding him up. But it was dangerous that the tiger was overcoming physical pain and death with pure hatred and anger. Shh. Suddenly, the hole in its chest began to regenerate. If the core was lost, the ability to regenerate would be lost too, but seeing the flesh heal, this wasn't the work of the core. This monster was still very much alive. Quao! A change occurred in the dark sky, which was covered with dark clouds at its howl. The rain stopped for a second and then became heavier. Quang! Thunder clouds began to form and lightning struck. Wing! The wind moved around Changbai Mountain. Everything around got escalated. What the hell? Thunder and lightning? Everyone who saw that couldn't hide their shocked expressions. As if the tiger was the eye of the typhoon, the strong winds went in all directions around it. Tornado gusts spread all over the mountain. Tut-tut-tut. Pull. Starting with the gravel and grass around the lake, even the trees began to get uprooted. Fragments of ice floated in the air. Goo. Oh. Emo move. Even the warriors of the Blade God's 6 martial clan got picked up by the wind. Holding on wasn't an option for the low-skilled warriors. Ack. There were no exceptions. The only thing they could do was try and withstand the typhoon, which seemed no different from a natural disaster. Buong. Damn it. The warriors of the Blade God's 6 martial clan began to concentrate their energy. From their dantian to their feet to increase their weight, but when trees were being uprooted, how could humans stand? Kwang. Arkwui, who was barely holding on to the fur of the black tiger, felt stiff. Just like that time. What he feared happened. This was why he wanted to kill the black tiger before he went back into its original state. 100 years ago, this man devastated the land around Chongbai Mountain, and for a while, the land was dead, and no trees grew. Kwaia. Arkwui stared at the black tiger. Is death only possible if its head is cut off? To not die, despite its core being pulled out, meant that it had to be beheaded. He bit his lip as he made up his mind. Grr. Bang. Bang. Flash. On the other hand, 2 humans were steadily balancing, despite the thunder and lightning. They were Chen Yuan and the Blade Lord. Despite the situation turning into a disaster, the 2 of them were still facing each other. However, they were able to endure it because of their internal energy. This is good. While the god of the East deals with that white tiger, this one will be dealt with. The Blade Lord saw this as an opportunity. This crazy situation would bring in the reversal they needed. Whoa! As the Blade Lord held out his hand, a huge invisible sword imbued with ice chi was created. Wing! Slash! Despite the noises around them, the sound of the sword was the only thing that could be heard. Demon God! I will kill you right here and change the future. Future? At the words of the Blade Lord, Chen Yuan's eyes narrowed. Ha! Slash! With eyes full of determination, the Blade Lord rushed towards Chen Yuan. The sword imbued with ice chi seemed like it would freeze everything. It was the first created technique of the Blade God's 6 martial clan. The technique that the clan depended on, the extreme art of the Blade God. Cha-cha-cha. The power of the technique, which unfolded in the form of an invisible sword with ice chi, created a tremendous momentum that couldn't be compared to existing techniques. Everything felt strange. Ch. It had the power to destroy and freeze everything. Chen Yuan, who looked at the sword, unfolded his own technique. Sword Force of the Sky Demon. The Blade Lord smiled at it. Even if he was the demon god, he would never be able to defeat the present Blade Lord because he knew about it from the records. And he had already figured out how to destroy the Sword Force of the Sky Demon long ago. Demon God. Even with sword technique created by Chun Ma, you can no longer defeat the extreme art of the Blade God. It was then. Wing. An invisible black flame chi sword emerged from Chen Yuan's right hand. The Blade Lord's eyes narrowed at the bizarre sword, which contained both the Sky Demon energy and the Qilance flame. Can an invisible sword have different attributes? But that wasn't the end. Swash. Wing. There seemed to be something different about Chen Yuan's sword technique, which stretched forward and drew trails of black flames. It wasn't the sword force of the Sky Demon that he knew. What is this sword? Across the wind and rain, the traces of the black flames created numerous lines that seemed to create a form of the extreme art of the Blade God. Cha-cha-kang. Huang. When the 2 techniques collided, the wind and rain got pushed away instantly, the place cleared up. And the newly cleared up place had white snow and black flames. Constant clashes, which didn't stop. It seemed like neither one of them wanted to get pushed back. After around 7 clashes, something weird happened. As the sword technique wasn't the one he knew, the Blade Lord's face changed. This isn't the sword force of the Sky Demon. It looked similar, but it was different. It even had their own technique added to it, holding a thrilling power that seemed closer to perfection than the originals of both techniques. This is different from the one in the records? This sword technique couldn't be destroyed. As 12 clashes passed, the eyes of the Blade Lord, who was getting pushed back, realized that he was losing. Chow chow chow. In the end, the Blade Lord, who lost his composure because of witnessing a new sword technique, shouted, "Ugh. Yeah. How? What is that sword?" Chen Yuan's lips turned into a smile as he watched his opponent get pushed back. Sword Art of the Demon God. Sword Art of the Demon God? Quackwag. The sound of something breaking. It was something that happened as the invisible sword made of ice chi was still unfolding the extreme art of the Blade God. Chen Yuan continued to speak. Third formation, extreme art of the Sky Sword Superscript 1. Cha-chong. As soon as he said those words, the Blade Lord's invisible sword shattered, and then traces of the black flames were drawn by the sword art of the Demon God. Wing. Rumble. Quack. Chapter 458. You Aren't Him. Part 2. Ancient Memories. It was a time when there wasn't much interaction with humans. Often guests came from the peninsula to the southeast of the sacred mountain where he resided, or from Jianghu to the northwest. There were numerous warriors and martial artists who said that they wanted to cultivate. The funny thing was everyone was honest about their desires. They aimed for the core, which contained his spiritual energy. It was a repetitive thing that happened since the day he was born on Earth. Frustrating. Annoying. He just wanted to gather spiritual energy and climb up the ladder as years passed, but he couldn't figure out just why people were aiming for him. There were times when he was angry since all he wanted to do is avoid unnecessary conflict. It isn't because I'm afraid of him. He just didn't want to see blood. As the years went by, he accumulated enough spiritual energy to ascend, and miraculously he gained the ability to transform into anything he wanted. This is amazing. The ability was proof that he had accumulated enough energy. As the years passed, a new tiger with overflowing spiritual energy was born among the white tigers of the mountain. The birth of Feng Bo, the white tiger, who would succeed him. It also meant that he was getting closer to ascension. He met the young white tiger before he ascended and learned a lot. This is more fun than I thought. Ordinary animals were afraid of him, a spirit beast, and among humans, he was surrounded by those who wanted his core, yet because of his strength, no one came close. But there was one problem. Because of the new guy, he was exposed to humans more than when he was alone. Lacking spiritual energy and experience, that one was overly active, and even when humans appeared, it roamed around without hesitation, creating messes. Act a little more modest. No matter how many times he warned it, the newborn tiger was reckless. It looked like the new one was 4 months old, so he had no choice but to protect it until he ascended. Then one day, the young one wasn't seen anywhere. Did something happen? With an ominous thought, he ran across the mountain to find him. After wandering around for a while, he saw the new one in the northern part of the mountain, surrounded by a group of humans. You make me see blood even in the end. You humans. Humans are always greedy when it came to their nature. Dealing with ordinary humans wasn't difficult. However, among humans, there were those whose power wasn't human-like. You need to be careful. Even if you're going to ascend to heaven, dealing with such a human would be dangerous for you. He was warned like that, but he was in a crisis. Unlike himself, who reached the pinnacle of spiritual energy, the young white tiger lacked strength and experience. The moment he was in a hurry to help him, something unexpected happened. Cha-cha-cha. Quack. Kook. Suddenly, an unknown middle-aged man with shocked eyes appeared and slaughtered the group of people surrounding the white tiger cub. The group of people looked like martial artists, yet they were helpless. Did he kill them because he covets the core? For some reason, the man looked dangerous. Even he, who reached the peak of spiritual energy, could sense that. He moved there in haste. How dare you damn bastards aim for the divine guardian deity of MT Baekdu. From now on, anyone who even steps 1 foot into the mountain will be killed. It was his first time meeting that man. Contrary to his expectations that the man was aiming for the core, the man went somewhere in the mountain after annihilating the enemies. What was that? What was that guy? A weird one. Throughout the hundreds of years that he lived, it was his first time meeting such a man. Curiosity began to rise in him. Often some martial artists cultivated in Changbai Mountain. And the man settled too and began to polish his martial arts. Is he here to practice? He was stronger than any human he had ever seen, so he decided to watch and observe him. If that man made up his mind, then the white tiger cub would be in danger. And the man was special. He didn't want them to enter? He expelled or killed the men who tried to enter the mountain. In particular, he seemed to hate the martial artists from the north. There was no mercy for them. The only survivors were the ones who came from the peninsula. Such a strange guy. It was as if the man was trying to cover up a murder. He decided to sit and see how long the man would stay like that. 5 years passed. Strangely, he repeated only training and chasing out intruders for all 5 years. In the meantime, the white tiger cub was saved several times. But still, he didn't want to trust a human, so he was just watching the man until he ascended. But one day, the man spoke to him. Ah. There is the tiger. Hasn't it been a while since we ate together? I'm bored. Let's have a drink together. He was a good-natured man. What is he planning? Although he watched him for many years, it was the first time the man spoke to him. Even though he deliberately pretended to not notice him, the man talked. After about a month, he began to love the silly jokes of the man who drank alcohol. The man said that he previously served as a military officer in the southern peninsula. Just the talk of the man's military days could pass the time while they drank alcohol. I told my king later. We need to beat those cheeky bastards to death and restore the glory of the old predecessor. But the king didn't listen to me. I was pretty frustrated as he fell for the words of those whose heads were full of shit. Complaints, complaints. That made the white tiger feel like the man wasn't different from any other human. Still, he enjoyed it. Living for hundreds of years, this was fun. Wah! I must have gone crazy. Divine spirit. So you're saying you can transform into a human? Wah! The man even got the honor of seeing the white tiger use his ability for the first time. What was more unusual was that even after seeing that ability, the man continued to joke around. Amazing. By any chance, can you turn into a woman? No? That's a pity. The man had a variety of emotional changes. He taught the white tiger martial arts because it kept watching him train. I haven't taught anyone outside of our family lineage, but there is nothing about not teaching an animal. He. The man was excited and then taught the white tiger. The white tiger learned because he was interested in the experiences he was getting for the first time. At first, it was just a pastime for the white tiger, but with the variety of things being taught, he learned them all. The man even talked about some interesting methods. While learning one thing, something interesting happened. This is very special. Wait. There is an energy circle in your chest, but I never thought that you would have another energy circle in your dantian, too. Such a strange thing. Even the white tiger never thought that a new core would be created. If the original core had formed with the passage of time, the new core came from the training. Thanks to that, the white tiger was excited as he kept on practicing new things constantly. The human bastard. Does he have no friends? At some point, the white tiger began to talk in a tone and language similar to the man. Despite turning into a human, he never learned how to speak, but spending time with the man allowed him to grasp a few words. Why don't you have a close friend? The man who was always alone brought a human into the mountain. They were talking with each other. The man he brought in was someone called Arkwui, who was just as strong as the human. He said that Arkwui was the only friend he had in the Jianghu region, and he turned out to be a better person than the white tiger had thought. Like the man, he didn't covet the core of the spirit beast either. Because you hate humans, you began to get close with the spirit beast? Sakyang. Ha ha ha. This new man, who was full of spirit called Arkwui, was also a good one. Somehow, the white tiger came to be with the two humans and had the most enjoyable time of his life. Before I ascend, heaven gave me a gift. Right. He regarded it as a gift from heaven. However, the fact that their friendship grew was true. The white tiger just hoped that the happiness and joy wouldn't vanish until he reached heaven. But the worst happened. As a spirit beast that accumulated spiritual energy for a long time, it reached its time. The man congratulated him and said that he felt sad that his old friend was leaving. If there is a meeting, there is also a parting. Right. Goodbye, my friend. I will train hard in the future and come for you, so don't act all arrogant because you went first. The white tiger wanted to ascend in a good mood. However, right when he was about to move, unknown sinister energy broke into the mountain. Someone with tremendous energy, as if he were a spirit beast who was also ready to ascend to heaven like the white tiger, yet, the white tiger felt danger from the presence. Don't worry, you go ahead and ascend. I'll go and take care of it. This is different. Something so creepy and dangerous might be out there. Ha ha ha, my best friend. Before coming here, I was called the best warrior in Goryeo. What would dare to fight me? Haha. Showing confidence, the man set off towards the ominous energy. The real definition of a cool guy. Just by listening to his words, the white tiger's anxiety disappeared. This time, he hoped that he would get the task done. But everything turned out wrong. As he was concentrating on ascending, he felt the energy of the man weaken. As if that wasn't enough, he heard the wailing of the next white tiger. Coo! The sound of a painful death. No matter how hard he tried to focus on ascending, the two things he noticed made it difficult. In the end, he couldn't concentrate anymore and headed to the place in the mountain. An unidentified man was pulling out the core of the new white tiger. The guy who pulled out the core of the young white tiger didn't even have a single emotion on his face. He was such a monstrous person that he couldn't be considered human in any way. This is fun. You turned into a human? With those words, the man was about to approach the white tiger with his blue sword. Cough, cough, run, run away, this man is a monster. His friend, who had collapsed with his arms cut off, coughed blood and shouted before he closed his eyes as if he died. Sakyang? When he saw that, the white tiger lost his mind. Quo. The idea of ascending left his mind completely. Hatred began to consume him. He fought with the monster-like man who held a sword. After colliding several times, he transformed into his natural form to kill him. After that, he remembered nothing. The hatred and lust for destruction consumed him. By the time he came to his senses, the peaks surrounding Changbai Mountain were all destroyed and in ruin. Bang! One by one, the fists which came at him were strong enough to bring him back to reality. If it wasn't for Arkwui, his other friend, the white tiger would have run amok. He's dying. Without even listening to him, do you want to destroy the world? He's alive? The young white tiger was dead. However, Sakyung was on the verge of death, gasping for breath. Sakyung. Sakyung. Cough, cough. I thought today was a good day, but it doesn't seem like that. Haha. I wanted to see you ascend with my own eyes, but you lost it because of me. Cough, cough. No. If you take my blood, you might live. The white tiger bit his arm and let his blood run down the lips of Sakyung. He never did it before, but he knew from the words of the Wulin people that his blood had the power to regenerate anything. However, both his arms were cut off, and even his dantian was broken. Quack! Sakyung's veins stood up as if they were about to burst. On the contrary, if he was in top condition, he would have been fine, but now his state was horrible. It shouldn't be like this. This can't be. He didn't want to see his friend in pain. But death was approaching, yet the man spoke without resentment. Cough. I had something wonderful before I left, right? If it wasn't for that bastard, today would have been a good day. No. Sakyung. Sakyung. You shouldn't die here. Even Arkwui shed tears. Seeing him dying, hatred and anger started flowing again. He wanted to catch that bastard and tear him apart piece by piece until there was nothing left. I have a request. What is it? Cough, cough, please, you. You don't need to give up on your dream for revenge. Got it? No, don't say things like that. Cough, cough, you are quite stubborn. Hee. Arkwui. This friend of mine, cough, stop him. Don't, cough, let him do anything. He made a request to Arkwui. He accepted the request, but he was too concerned that the monster would return. It was natural to be concerned because he was the monster who killed his friend and ran away. Do you think I can't kill that bastard? My best friend for a long time, cough. You've been building yourself for your dream. Leave those for Arkwui, and Sakyung's eyes lost focus and became blurry. And his body turned cold as if his soul separated from it. Sakyung. Sakyung. Wake up. Does it make sense that you, the strongest in the world, are defeated by someone and die? Arkwui grabbed him by the shoulders and shook him, but to no avail. A lost soul couldn't be trapped. I want to talk more with you, to see your face. Why? Before he could even finish speaking, the man died. He pretended to be calm for the sake of his living friends, but his body was trembling, and he was afraid of dying. When the strength in his hands was lost, the world the white tiger knew shattered. He wanted to get his revenge on the man. It didn't matter if the opponent was a monster or not. His hunger would only be relieved if that person could be found and killed. Are you going to betray your friend's last wish for revenge? His hatred and anger was suppressed by Arkwui. Their friend prayed that the white tiger wouldn't be bound by revenge and ascend. It was because he knew the wish of the white tiger, who had spent all its life for that. However, once hatred took hold, the spirit beast got eroded by the devil. And it would never ascend without purifying. Arkwui said that he would remain and help purify the spirit beast. Move. If you keep blocking me, I'll kill you too. I will handle your wrath. If I fail to handle you, you can do whatever you want. Handle my wrath? Like that, Arkwui confronted him every 10 years and helped him release his anger, but the white tiger was different from humans. Humans tend to forget things and erase painful memories. However, for a spirit beast, even after hundreds of years, memories couldn't be erased. The hatred grew, and he wanted to kill everyone and everything in Jianghu. They stole everything. He slaughtered everyone who came to the mountain. He hated them. Since the blood didn't stop flowing, instead of being purified, the ill intent only grew. And today, the traces of that monster were felt again. These men had something to do with that monster. Maybe the spirit of Sakyong is helping me. Today, I'll erase those bastards from the world. The men in front of him were nothing but enemies, and he had no intention of holding himself back for the sake of the oath. He wanted to kill them all, leaving no one behind. But his wish was about to disappear. He had surrendered himself to hatred, and a sharp slash on his neck was felt. Swoosh! He looked at the wind and rain with a bitter expression. He couldn't tell if he was crying or if the rain was falling. The man who hit him had something in his hand. Sword? The only thing left behind by his dead friend. And the other friend who vowed to never use a weapon for the rest of his life swung it at him. And the target of the sword was the white tiger's neck. Sakyong. As his head got cut off, his mind thought of only one thing. Maybe this is for the best. Swa. Wing. The rain and the wind and the dark clouds made everything look sad. As the giant head of the black tiger got cut off, the strong typhoon gradually weakened. Ark Wui mumbled bitterly at the death of the tiger while holding the sword in hand. I will carry all your hatred. You will meet our friend in the afterlife, and in the not-too-distant future, I will come there too, so let's have a drink like the old days. Rumble. He looked up, but the rain didn't stop. Blazing black flames drew in the air, drawing numerous trajectories. Chapter 459. You Aren't Him. Part 3. Quack. The Blade Lord got hit by the sword art of the demon god, which came for him with black flames. As he got swept back by the sword, he felt his entire body get cut and burnt. It seemed like killing him was more forgiving. Thud. In the aftermath of that technique, his body sank into the frozen lake. Swoosh. Each time a raindrop fell on his open wounds, it hurt. He couldn't even understand what was happening. He lost. But from what was written in the records, the demon god, the current level of the demon god, shouldn't even be capable of standing in front of him. But facing him, he was like a monster. I kept getting pushed back. Even after absorbing the core of the great bird, he got pushed back, and even when using his clan's techniques, he lost. He never imagined that there was anything more than the sword force of the sky demon in the demonic cult. No, even in the records, it was far into the future when the demon god even acquired one core. What went wrong? Although the appearance of the god of the east was a variable, before Chen Yuan had appeared in the mountain, the Blade God's 6 martial clan had moved and prepared everything according to the records. He even prepared his own body. I am the head who is supposed to gain eternal life and immortality. Why is this happening to me? He was even more miserable now than after his first defeat. Rather, the god of the east wasn't even recorded in the records, so he could be considered a variable in their plan, but the demon god shouldn't even be in the region. Whoa! He wasn't the only one who faced the aftermath of defeat. Even though they were swept away by the typhoon, the impact the warriors faced was too much. Blade Lord is defeated? Does that mean that the demon god is stronger? That can't be. To the Blade God's 6 martial clan, the Blade Lord was God. The person who is as strong as a mountain that would never break collapsed in front of everyone. The figure, which raged covered in burns and blood, was that of a loser. No. It can't happen like this. Huang Heol, the one in bandages, couldn't hide his shock as he watched the warriors' morale drop sharply because of their lord's defeat. If he doesn't do something, everything they did would be for nothing. It would be possible to save their power by trying to hold back the two monsters, the demon god and the god of the east, and then flee, but even then, it would only be possible for the elite to escape. Huang Heol. He turned his head to the person who sent the telepathic message. It was the former Lord Wu, with the golden eye patch, who was trying to calm his breath and mind. This old man and the other former lord with the remaining spirit squad will stop those two monsters. Hurry up and retreat with the Blade Lord and the other warriors. However, there is no chance we will win. They hated to admit it, but nothing could reverse the situation. Like Huang Heol, the former lords chose to save their people and preserve power. Even if the others were abandoned, their lord had to be taken away. How can you two make such sacrifices? You lead the troop. They aren't people you can handle. We are prepared to use the blood reversion art if needed. Huang Heol didn't respond to the voice full of determination to sacrifice their lives for the sake of their lord. As former Lord Wu said, there was no way that Huang Heol could handle both the monsters and survive. Then, please run away. With those words, former Lord Wu shouted to the warriors of his clan. A voice filled with internal energy resounded throughout Chongbai Mountain. Listen, everyone. Unless we kill those two monsters here, there is no future for us. I remove all restrictions placed on you. Kill them by any means possible. Yes. Responding to his order, the surviving men shouted at once. Of the 1,000 warriors, only about 400 survived the typhoon. Even so, if that many people could use the completed blood reversion art, even if the opponents were monsters, they would be unable to do anything. Bubble. Bulge. Once the order fell, almost everyone began to use the blood reversion art. The completed blood reversion art showed the body's maximum ability, and it played a vital role in boosting someone's energy and regeneration speed. However, there were side effects of using it. Still, the side effects were much less dire than the incomplete blood reversion arts, which was practiced in the past. Grr. Howls of wild beasts could be heard everywhere. The energy of the warriors, whose muscles and skeletons grew unusually large, looked terrifying. The first ones to transform were the elite members of the clan who were above master level. These are evil things which need to be destroyed. Goo. Seeing them like that, Ark Wui turned to the fight with enthusiasm. He felt terrible after killing his friend, so he had no desire to show mercy to them or himself. God of the East. Quack. Die. The Blade God's 6 martial clan warriors, who were all in close vicinity of Ark Wui, rushed towards him. Their swords were glowing with sword chi. It was clear that everyone was rushing towards the Divine Master while putting their lives on the line with higher energy than before. Foolish. Ark Wui extended his fist towards them. The space distorted, and a strong wind swept them away. Quack quack wang. Kuak. Kook. Their bodies were torn to shreds by the strong pressure. How could they withstand the blows from the God of the East, who was the best at what he does? They all just fell. SRRR. Growling. Well. Ark Wui noticed something. Some sacrificed their bodies to protect their heads. Such people overcame the pain as their bodies began to regenerate rapidly and marched towards him again. Trying to become a monster with a human body? He knew how to stop their movements, either cut off their heads or crush them to bits. Like how he killed his friend. Ark Wui frowned with displeasure and then once again unleashed another fist at them. Fat. Meanwhile, Chun Yowan, who was moving towards the Blade Lord, who was stuck to the ground, was also surrounded by the warriors who unfolded the blood reversion art. The first person to attack him was former Lord Wu. Swish. Chun Yowan blocked the incoming attack, which came in with a huge force. Cha-cha-chang. The momentum of the sword technique was amazing. In terms of executing it, it exceeded even those who were in the Supreme Master level. Growling. Die. Demon God. From the very beginning, former Lord Wu possessed skills comparable to that of the 5 strongest warriors. As he unfolded the blood reversion art, his original limit was exceeded, and the attacks seemed divine. It was his conviction to do anything and everything to kill the opponent. Cha-cha-chang. He intends to die. Even if Chen Youwen used his invisible sword, he attacked without hesitation, and Chen Youwen had no choice but to stop the sword technique the man was using. Endure everything. To make time for the Blade Lord to escape. From the beginning, the man knew that he wouldn't win against Chen Youwen. As long as they made time for their lord to escape, it didn't matter if their lives were lost. Papak. Die. At that time, the other warriors who were around Chen Youwen attacked. Their energy, which unfolded after the blood reversion art, was also unusual. Their red eyes were dyed with conviction. You are too occupied with former Lord Wu's attacks. As much as he struggled to prevent the attacks of former Lord Wu, Chen Youwen couldn't move as he was already busy dealing with one person. Maybe they could corner him. Growling. Ha! With the growl of an animal, the warriors attacked Chen Youwen from behind. Their faces filled with joy when they thought that they could kill the man. Clang. Their sword chi, which was radiating, split in two. Thinking that the armor made of black metal would be strong, they swung their swords with their full strength, but it was even stronger than they imagined. What kind of armor is that strong? Even former Lord Wu, who was ahead, couldn't hide his surprise. Sword chi is known to cut through rocks. But it didn't even work on the armor. You didn't think that I had some useless armor on, did you? Pierce. After a moment, Chen Youwen's 2 fingers stabbed former Lord Wu in his eyes. It was an unexpected attack. Trying to cover his eyes, he screamed. Kuu. My eyes. My eyes. Cha-cha-cha-cha. Even though his regeneration was fast, it wasn't fast enough. Chen Youwen grabbed the man through his eye socket and cut off his head with an invisible sword. Slash. He rushed in with determination, but in the end, it was futile. Seeing former Lord Wu fall down with his head cut off, the others shouted. Former Lord Wu. You don't have time to worry about others. Chen Youwen cut the throats of the warriors behind him. Slash. Contrary to the god of the East, Chen Youwen had fought countless times against people who used the blood reversion art. Cutting their necks is how they are stopped. However, the number was large. At least 200 or more red-eyed monsters were around him. Beheading them one after another is too much work. It would take a considerable amount of time. Grrrr. Kill him. Dozens of warriors jumped at him. There was nothing he could do, which meant that he had to suppress them with overwhelming power. At that, Chen Youwen mumbled with cold eyes. I know that this is a plot to stall for time. Do you really think that it will work? With those words, Chen Youwen stretched out his arm towards the dark clouds. Growling. Thunder could be heard from the dark clouds, and bright lightning flashed. Even the warriors, whose rationality was half blown away because of the blood reversion art, were confused and looked at the bizarre phenomenon. Growling. And no way. As if. No matter how much they thought about it, the thunder had to be a coincidence. It was that moment. Take them down. Grr. Bang. As Chen Youwen lowered his hand, the dark thunder clouds began to release lightning. As the huge lightning bolts fell, it was nothing short of a disaster. Crazy. Is he not human? Lightning couldn't be summoned in such a short amount of time. Shoot. Crackle. Their bodies were soaked, and the land was flooded. More than 200 warriors were struck by lightning and electrocuted. Crackle. Kuuwak. Kuu. Chun Yo-won had taken in Thunder Chi, so obviously, he could control it. He was able to create such a phenomenon because of the thunder clouds, which were already present. Growling. Bang! Hwang Heol, the man in bandages, bit his lip as he watched the lightning fall. At first glance, he knew who was doing it. He is no longer human. He knew that Chun Yo-won absorbed the core of the dragon turtle and was capable of using Thunder Chi, but watching it gave him a different feeling. It seemed meaningless to call the man human. The only person who was supposed to be a god was their Blade Lord, who reached the pinnacle of martial arts, but that didn't seem to be the case any longer. Blade Lord. Hwang Heol looked at the Blade Lord, who was on the back of a warrior. Grunt. The Blade Lord's body was regenerating little by little. But it was completely different from what he thought. Having absorbed the core, he expected the body to recover faster, but now it was as if something was restricting the healing. That ferocious sword that demon unleashed is interfering with his regeneration. The Blade Lord would have regenerated much faster had it not been for the black energy that seeped into his body. While being carried away, the Blade Lord focused on getting that energy out. Demon God. Grunt. An intense anger, which he felt for the first time after his loss against the god of the East, came over him again. He felt that he was disgraced and looked miserable. It was pitiful. They were sacrificing their elite men for only a handful of masters to run away. The masters who rushed down Changbai Mountain kept silent, knowing how their lord must have been feeling. Retreating, escaping, either of them was depressing for anyone. Bitter defeat is nourishment. Demon God, this head never settles for defeat. Enjoy today's victory. After all, time is on our side. Calming his mind, the Blade Lord spoke to his warriors. It was to prevent a drop in their morale. Even if we are defeated now, the legacy will never stop. Remember the blood and sacrifices we had to make. This head promises to you all. It was then. Blue rays of light fell in front of them as they rushed down the mountain. Quack quack wang. Stop. All of them had to stop at once. Hwang Heol mumbled in a trembling voice. This, Sky Flash? As soon as he finished speaking, someone flew across the air. Swoosh! It was the demon god, Chun Yo-won, who stood in their way. Chun Yo-won landed in front of them and spoke. There is no next time for you. Fake Blade God. Hearing the last part, the eyes of the Blade Lord shook. Chapter 460. You aren't him. Part 4. The words which came out of the demon god's mouth about the Blade God didn't just shock the Blade Lord. Even Hwang Heol and the other masters weren't able to hide their shock. Blade God. It was their ancestor. The problem wasn't that he knew the name. Many people in Wulin knew the name Blade God, a man of the past. In addition, there were factions in the Yulin and the demonic cult who were aware of the descendants of the Blade God, and they knew it through the clan spies. But that was all. No one could know the true secret behind their clan. Fake. Blade God? But why did Chun Yo-won refer to the Blade Lord as a fake Blade God? Their secrets couldn't be known. Raging, on the back of a master, the Blade Lord yelled out in anger. I haven't inherited the title yet, but you demon god has no right to know about those things. Inherited? Chun Yo-won's eyes lit up. Because of the Blade Lord's words, he realized that the name Blade God was equivalent to the name Chun Ma in the demonic cult. With a single unintentional stimulus, unexpected information was obtained. Chun Yo-won remembered the face he saw in the video of Nano. Different. The strong face of the Blade God with thick eyebrows was completely different from the Blade Lord. But the Blade Lord's words meant that he was the Blade God who controlled the future. This only made him more confused. Then, as the descendant called Chun said, someone from the future altered the past, But as the Blade Lord said, is it possible for someone in the future to inherit the name of Blade God? He made some assumptions. There was a high probability that he was a separate person from the Blade God who appeared in the past and fought the Sword Demon. It felt more realistic than making complicated connections. One thing was certain. You are not. The Blade Lord felt strong displeasure from Chen Yuan's determined tone. What are you talking about now, Demon God? You don't need to know. How dare you? Chen Yuan calmly made him realize his reality. Do you think that you have the right to ask me that when you're escaping at the expense of your subordinates? Trembling. Blade Lord. The master who was carrying the Blade Lord felt his trembling. They also felt his intense hatred towards Chen Yuan and his humiliating words. Were they any different from the Blade Lord? However, it seemed like the Blade Lord was suppressing his anger. SSSS. The Blade Lord was doing everything he could to get rid of the ugly energy which seeped into his body. If they left, he could regenerate. But if everyone died, the Blade God's 6 martial clan would receive a wound that cannot be healed. The Demon God will follow us to the base, right? They had to delay their departure. Originally, they wouldn't bother answering, but the only thing they wanted to do was overcome the crisis. What do you want to know about the main seat? Chen Yuan's eye lit up at the Blade Lord's question. Since he thought that the man wouldn't give an honest answer, Chen Yuan was planning on subduing and torturing him. The internal energy of the injured person is active. Nano's voice echoed in Chen Yuan's head. I know. Even if Nano didn't tell him, he could feel the internal energy of the Blade Lord rising. Besides, he knew more by looking at his tense eyes. Playing tricks. Are you trying to stall for time to release my energy in your body? He immediately understood his intentions. Chen Yuan, who was concerned for a moment, decided that it would be better to do something else. When he tried to get information from one of the past masters of the Blade God's 6 martial clan, who was detained in the demonic cult, he lost his reasoning without even giving out a few words. But since he's the head, the probability of that happening is low, but he couldn't be sure that a thorough clan like the Blade God's 6 martial clan wouldn't have placed a ban in the mind of its head. If that was the case, acting like he was fooled was the best choice. Chen Yuan opened his mouth while looking at the Blade Lord. You promised to kill me and change the future. Shit. The Blade Lord's eye fluttered. He never expected Chen Yuan to remember and ask that. Even when he was trying to keep a calm expression, Chen Yuan, who could see everything from his facial muscles to the contraction of his pupils, asked, I see that you know the future? As a response to that question, not just the Blade Lord but even Huang Heil was shocked. It was just out of curiosity, but their actions gave him the answer. So, it's true? Chen Yuan asked it, going off an assumption. If you could go back to the past, what would you do to change the present? Implant your descendants with nano machines. If so, those who claim to be the descendants of the Blade God are likely to have received something from the one in the future. How did he even? How did the Demon God know? Those who were aware of that fact were few in the Blade God's 6 martial clan. The Blade Lord opened his eyes and looked at Huang Heil. Huang Heil. I too, what is happening? Was the record left behind by him leaked? Without that, there was no way that the Demon God could ask such an accurate question. To that, Huang Heil replied, bewildered. There is no way that could have happened. Blade Lord. No one has invaded the base with the record. Besides, even if it's leaked, the only people who can read it properly are me and the other 2 former lords. Huang Heil was right. Even if it was leaked, only 4 people could read the record, including the Blade Lord. As a test, they asked literates to read it, but no one managed to interpret it. It was because, besides the simplified characters, there were words that didn't exist in the current Jianghu. In the end, it meant that they couldn't read it. Record? Chen Yuan's eyes narrowed. Thanks to the ability, which helped eavesdrop on others' telepathic messages, he could hear their conversation. Suddenly, he remembered what Chen Yinji said. They are pretty great people. I couldn't get much information because they used words with simple strokes of Chinese characters. At that time, Chen Yuan assumed that it was simple Chinese words. If these two people were talking about that, then Chen Yinji must have copied what was being referred to as the record. Not knowing that Chen Yuan was listening to them, Huang He continued to deny it. It's absolutely impossible for the demon god to know that. Saying you are definite, wait. The Blade Lord's eyes trembled. He knew that the record wasn't leaked. But something felt strange. When thinking about it, according to the record, the demon god was still supposed to be the crown prince of the demonic cult. And the reason he was involved with Chen Yuzhong, the former lord, was to prevent Chen Yuan from even becoming the crown prince. I didn't really care, but because he can't intervene directly in the past, not all records left behind fit perfectly. Even if the demon god was growing faster than mentioned in the records, this speed was too fast. Now they couldn't even stop him. As the demon god gets called the second generation Chen Ma in the future. According to the records, they took it as a warning and tried to obtain all the cores. But coincidentally, he interrupted them every time. Thanks to that, the core of the flame Qilin, dragon turtle, and Mugi, and now even the white tiger got taken away. Initially, we were thinking in the wrong way. Since he is the second generation Chen Ma, it isn't so unexpected that he moved like that. The Blade Lord looked at Chen Yuan with a stiff face and said, "You know the future too. Demon God. Without that, how could he turn all of their plans into dust?" Huang He looked at Chen Yuan in a way that said he didn't want to trust what he heard. Chen Yuan's eyes became gloomy at those words. This is going in a completely different direction. He didn't know the future. He only knew that someone from the future intervened in the past. Although his opponents were ignorant, he didn't consider it necessary to deny that. I can get more information. Maybe they didn't know who the real Blade God was. Chen Yuan said casually. You're pretty quick. Then you know that you can't cheat, right? They faltered when he went along with their question. In particular, the one called Nag Heel responded. BL Blade Lord. It's impossible. His records clearly state that something in his body couldn't be removed and that the TP intervenes, so no one but himself can intervene in the past. TP? It wasn't the language of Jianghu, nor was it something from this era. Chen Yuan had heard that word somewhere. The word was definitely mentioned by Chen in Nano's video. Doctor, your words are right. Still, the ID chip is dangerous. You do know that if you get a nano machine, tracking by the TP will be faster, right? Even his descendant Chen seemed concerned about it. He didn't know what this TP exactly was, but it seemed like something which prevented the people from the future from intervening in the past. This clan's descendants also seem to have injected themselves with nano machines and disappeared because of it. Chen Yuan's eyes widened, thinking about it. Wait up, does that mean that the person they keep talking about didn't just help them from the future, but also stayed in the past? He didn't go back like descendant Chen. He was in the past. Wondering, he thought about the traces of Blade God's 6 martial clan's sword, which first appeared in the days of the past, in Sword Valley, and even during the time of Chen Ma. In addition, the extreme art of the Blade God had developed over time. I was wrong. Right. That's it. He went further back in time. Chen Yuan spoke to them. The one you keep talking about is the Blade God, it was then. Swoosh! A black haze spurted from the Blade Lord's body. The release of the entire Sky Demon energy in him. At the same time, the eyes of the Blade Lord, which looked like death, were revived, and he flew towards Chen Yuan. Swoosh. Indeed, you, the demon god, has to be killed here. Who? Space distorted from the hand of the Blade Lord, which condensed energy. It was the unification of energy. The Blade Lord, who raised his energy and the ice chi of the great bird, tried to kill Chen Yuan. Now that he was lost in thought, it was his only chance to kill Chen Yuan. Then, crackle. This? An invisible sword made out of black thunder chi formed in front of Chen Yuan. It was a mistake to think that the Blade Lord wouldn't be vigilant because of his injuries. Yet, Chen Yuan was in perfect condition. Not worth it. With those words, Chen Yuan stretched out his hand. Crackle-woo. The space distorted as all the energy unified on the tip of the black thunder chi invisible sword. Ununification? Blade Lord couldn't help but be shocked. He had to spend 20 years learning the supreme secret. It was a secret move he had been hiding until the very end, even when he was on the verge of losing against Demon God on the peak. No way. You, how can you? Crackle. Crackle. Before he could even finish his words, a beam of black lighting struck him. The Blade Lord responded by urgently unifying the energy he gathered in his hand. Pang. Quack. Blood gushed out of his mouth. He tried to hold the energy shield with all his might. Coo. It was impossible to stop the sword technique, which was rushing in with black thunder chi and an invisible sword all unified together. Chen Yuan spoke in a cold voice. Don't dream of playing around. Crackle. Quackwang. The demon god. No. Yuk. The attack of the Blade Lord was destroyed, and his body got swept away by the lightning in an instant. The screams were strong and terrifying until they slowly became fleeting. The only traces left behind were the spots that the black lightning burnt. How did this happen? Blade Lord. Huang Heol and the other masters screamed and tried to find him, but there were no traces of him. As if he disappeared. As if he vanished completely, leaving no cells behind.